From his extraordinary brutality in the field of battle, to his occasional cunning when dealing with his friend Banquo, from his lack of decisiveness in discussion with his wife, to his eventual purposefulness in carrying out the murder of Duncan, Macbeth is a character who has always captivated generations of initially reluctant students, teachers and curious members of the public. So, what makes this oft-quoted and discussed character so watchable, so intriguing and so compelling? Who's trembling for a tragedy? Who's shaking, shuddering and shimmering for Shakespeare? Who's mad about Macbeth? Stay tuned, you're watching Schofield on Shakespeare. Act 1, Scene 1 takes place on a heath, with thunder and lightning lashing down. No harvest breeze there. And this scene immediately suggests Macbeth's importance to the plot, with the curious, wrinkly, bearded witches announcing that they will meet with Macbeth upon the heath. We have no idea why they wish to meet with him at this stage. However, it is clear that their intentions are not honourable, as shown in their curiously repetitive, circular and ominous sounding refrain. Fair is foul and foul is fair. The alliterative words are aimed to confuse in their similarities. Both are 4 letters and begin with F, though fortunately the modern world's favourite 4-letter F word is not used. But the meaning is clear. The witches believe that evil things are wonderful and good things are hellish. Much more information is given about Macbeth in Act 1, Scene 2. Just as Othello, the impressive Moorish general, is discussed well before he arrives on stage in the play of the same name, so lavish compliments are rained upon Macbeth about his fighting qualities. The captain quickly uses the adjective brave to refer to him, and then emphasises his courage further with the phrase, well, he deserves that name. Then goes on to suggest that during the battle, Macbeth was disdaining fortune. Note the capital F on the word fortune. This personifies fortune, makes it seem more powerful, like a person. Before even meeting Macbeth on stage, the audience is under no illusions that this man is extraordinarily valiant and heroic. All the odds were against him in battle, and yet he looked down on the odds, disdained them, ignored them, and came out triumphant. To the Scottish flag, he is true. Presented to a modern day, largely sanitised from warfare audience, Macbeth seems incredibly brutal, though of course this brutality is not actually seen on stage, only described. His ruthlessness is shown in his bloody sword, which smokes with bloody execution. The reference to smoked suggests blood is sprayed all over the sword, implying pitilessly indeterminate and savage attacking thrusts at the enemy. Shakespeare uses personification once again in the captain's description of Macbeth being like Valor's minion. Just like with fortune, Valor has a capital V. Macbeth is so brave, so valiant, that he epitomises the abstract concept of bravery itself, rather than just demonstrates an example of it. The word minion means favourite. This awesome fighter becomes more than human when out on the battlefields. When Macbeth finally gets close to that dreadful traitor to Scotland, MacDonald, he ups his brutality levels yet further. Once victorious, he unseamed him from the knave to the chaps. Modern audiences will be familiar with seams on clothing, lines where 2 pieces of fabric are sewn together, and so can easily imagine Macbeth metaphorically ripping MacDonald's body wide open, revealing his gory guts and inner organs, starting from the bottom of his stomach, the knave, until his jaw, the chaps. Macbeth isn't shy or squeamish when it comes to showing who's boss on the fighting field either. MacDonald's head is gruesomely fixed upon our battlements. Ugh! Even before the king offers his official seal of approval, in the purring lines, "O valiant cousin, worthy gentleman," the audience is intrigued by the descriptions of this powerful, seemingly indestructible warrior. But we are made to wait longer to meet Macbeth, with a second figure, more senior than the first, arriving to give further information about him. Ross reveals that as well as fighting rebel Scottish forces, Macbeth has had to contend with an invading Norwegian army. He describes Macbeth using the metaphor Bellona's bridegroom. Bellona was a Roman goddess of war. Suggesting Macbeth is metaphorically married to Bellona implies that he is equally warlike, equally immortal, possibly even more so given that in Elizabethan times men were considered both superior and physically stronger than women. However, audiences may find this reference to Macbeth being married to a goddess of war curiously apt, given the behaviour of Macbeth's real wife in later scenes. Unsex me here, anyone? Perhaps such a tremendous build-up to a character is bound to result in a letdown. Perhaps appearing as a civilian could never have the same impact as appearing as an actively serving soldier. However, when Macbeth does finally appear on stage in Act 1 Scene 3, he is intriguingly passive and commonplace. His first sentence is even a very British-like comment on the weather. "So foul and fair a day I have not seen." Moreover, observant members of an audience will pick up on Macbeth's vocabulary being strikingly similar to those of the witches. Whereas the witches use the words foul and fair to suggest a reversal of the natural order of good and evil, Macbeth uses the exact same words to comment passively on terrible weather. This makes him seem weaker, more passive, and perhaps more inclined to be manipulated by the witches when he does finally meet them. He doesn't have long to wait. He addresses them with some initial authority, as an audience would expect, having heard about his authority on the battlefield, demanding with the imperative, "Speak if you can, what are you?" Notice the questioning word what, rather than who. Macbeth not only doesn't know who they are, but also what they are, what type of being they may be. Whilst Banquo dominates the early conversation, if that's the correct word to describe an exchange in which the witches have complete control, Macbeth remains the central figure for the audience. The witches make a series of startling predictions, hailing first Thane of Glamis, which he is already, then Thane of Cawdor, which he is but doesn't know about, then King hereafter. Macbeth, the all-action hero described in Act 1 Scene 2, is left speechless at this point. His passivity is spotted in Banquo's deaf question, "Good sir, why do you start and seem to fear things that do sound so fair?" The verb start suggests Macbeth has recoiled, flinched, jumped a little at such an initially preposterous but obviously tantalising proposition. This inability to remain in complete control, to hide his emotions and feelings from others, is seen much later in the play, but with far more serious consequences. For example, in Act 3, Scene 4, when Macbeth believes he has seen Banquo's ghost, his guests are left gasping at his behaviour. However, once again, human language seems to echo that of the supernatural. It is not such a large jump from the witch's "fair is foul" to Banquo's "fear so fair." The implication is that already Banquo and Macbeth have the potential to be subconsciously influenced by external forces. Those of you who have read and watched until the end of the play will know that only one of those characters succumbs to this suggestive supernatural force, Macbeth. As I've just hinted, it is Macbeth's weaknesses, as well as his brute strength, that make him a compelling character for audiences. However, in Act 1, Scene 3, he manages to regain his composure relatively quickly. After 33 lines of dialogue dominated by the witches and Banquo, Macbeth comes to life and demands answers. "Stay, you imperfect speakers, tell me more." The sentences are short and commanding, with two imperative verbs, stay and tell, in a last-ditch attempt to exert some authority into this extraordinary situation. However, Macbeth shows that his mind is not quite secure with his comment about the Thane of Cawdor. The audience already know from Act 1 Scene 2 that Macbeth personally took on the Thane of Cawdor in battle. He was successful in curbing his lavish spirits, fought against him point against point, rebellious arm against arm. Yet here he bizarrely describes the Thane of Cawdor as a prosperous gentleman. Such a polite adjective as prosperous is surely a hugely inappropriate way of describing a most disloyal traitor, and shows that Macbeth is struggling to maintain a rational, logical state of mind. At any rate, the witches ignore this little speech and vanish, leaving Macbeth alone with his friend Banquo. So far in the play we have heard a great deal about Macbeth's ferocious power and seen some fairly indecisive reactions to supernatural goings on. However, Macbeth shows a different side alone with Banquo, a more poetic, gentler side. He ponders on the witch's disappearance and in answer to Banquo's question replies that they vanished into the air and what seemed corporeal melted as breath into the wind. The adjective corporeal refers to having a physical presence, having a body. Think of the French word corps, meaning body, suggesting Macbeth is stunned at something that seemed at the very least human-like disappearing, vanishing, just like that. The simile as breath into the wind helps Macbeth explore his own feelings about what has happened and links him with the natural side of the physical world, a refreshing change following earlier links merely with blood and death. But generally, Macbeth is still struggling to pull himself together, as shown in his short sentences, e.g. the rather limp and pathetic "would they had stayed," and continuing to be shocked questions such as "went it not so?" The need to put on a public display of self-control intensifies with the entrance of two other Scottish thanes, so presumably Macbeth's equals, Ross and Angus. The newcomers reveal Macbeth's promotion, which the audience already know about through dramatic irony, leaving him continuing to maintain his shock that the existing Thane of Cawdor should be deposed, even though, as we have already discovered, he has fought against him personally as a traitor. He says abruptly, "The Thane of Cawdor lives. Why do you dress me in borrowed robes?" Modern audiences, less used to the pomp and ceremony of now practically defunct aristocratic advancement and self-promotion, may be bemused by this reference. However, Macbeth is merely alluding to the fact that, just like university students put on robes to celebrate passing their course and becoming graduates, so a newly installed Thane will be given a gown and a formal ceremony to celebrate the new elevated position. Once the first prediction of the witches has come true, Macbeth's mind quickly begins to wander, and the audience sees a glimmer of ambition flicker from beneath a previously impeccable, loyal exterior. He says in an aside, "Glamis, Thane of Cawdor, the greatest is behind." The greatest prediction is obviously that of becoming king. But note that Macbeth seems bewitched by the magic set of 3, a number that seems to have held such significance since biblical times, for example, the Holy Trinity. He is beginning to be influenced by the witches, not just because they correctly stated he was Thane of Cawdor when he didn't know that, but also because they accurately identified him as Thane of Glamis, which appears also to be a relatively new promotion, as implied in Macbeth's line, "By Final's death, I know I am Thane of Glamis," suggesting the death took place recently. And even though Macbeth is receiving compliments from his fellow Thanes, and even though he is with Banquo, who surely he should be wary of, as one who has also heard the witch's words, he is unable to engage in sustained conversation. He speaks in an aside, which of course operates as an intimate one-on-one with the audience, furthering his relationship with them, of his fears about the witch's predictions of what he might be led to do. And let's be clear, this majestic warrior and killer during warfare is terrified about the acts he might commit in future. He soliloquizes, "This horrid image doth unfix my hair and make my seated heart knock at my ribs against the use of nature." His heart is not just beating more quickly, suggesting increased nerves, but knocking, suggesting almost a desperate desire to be released from an enclosed space, whilst his hair is not just standing on end, to quote the modern expression, but almost being ripped off his head. Such is his fear of the future.